Hello and welcome. In this lesson, we are diving into one of the most important concepts in Python, classes and objects. In this lesson, we will learn how to create classes, define attributes and methods, and then bring them to life with objects. By the end, you will see how classes make our code more organized, reusable, and closer to how we think about real-world things. A class is like a blueprint or a template. It describes what an object will look like and what it can do. But on its own, it's not a real thing. It's just a plan. So, you can think of a class as a definition or a recipe. It doesn't give you the actual result yet. It only tells you what the result should look like and what ingredients or features it should have. For example, a blueprint of a house is a class. It describes the walls, the windows, and the rooms. But the blueprint itself is not a house, it's just the plan. The same way, a class in Python is just a plan for creating objects. Until we actually build from it, nothing exists yet. Here, task is the class, which is the blueprint. It says that every task has a title and a deadline. Notice the special method, double underscore init double underscore. This is called the constructor. It's like the instructions for how to actually create a new object from the class. It takes in the values we give, like the title and the deadline, and assigns them to that new object. Now, let's talk about object. An object is a real thing created from a class. If a class is the blueprint, then an object is the house built from it. In programming, when you create a variable from a class, that variable becomes an object. It's a specific, concrete version of the plan. Here, task1 is an object. It's like a real house built from the task blueprint. This particular object has its own title, which is assignment, and its own deadline, which is 2025 August 20. Another object could be built from the same blueprint, but with different values. So, the relationship is simple. A class is the idea, which is the blueprint. An object is the reality, which is the actual thing built from the blueprint. And you can make many objects from the same class, just like you can build many houses from one set of blueprints. Here, both task1 and task2 are objects from the class task. Each has its own values, even though they share the same class definition. In the simplest terms, a class is the definition of what something is. An object is the actual thing created from that definition. Think of a class as the recipe and an object as the cake you baked from it. You can always bake more cakes from the same recipe, each one with slightly different flavors and decorations. Let's open VS Code and get started. Here, I'm typing the keyword class. This is how we define the class in Python. Think of a class as a blueprint for creating things. In our case, this will be the blueprint for all the tasks in our to-do list. And I'm calling it task with a capital T. By convention, class names in Python start with a capital T. And for now, I will just put pass inside, which is Python's way of saying do nothing for now. It's just a placeholder until we add some real code inside. Now, let's create two tasks from our blueprint. Task 1 and task 2. Task 1 is an instance of the class task. And task 2 is an instance of the same class. So, task 1 and task 2 are what we call objects or instances of the class. Each object is like a real product built from the blueprint. Even though they are both created from the same task class, They are completely separate. Changes to one won't affect the other. Okay, now let's try printing them to see what they look like. And yeah, Python is just giving us a weird memory address here. That's because we haven't told it what a task should look like when printed. We'll fix that later. We can actually add information to each object right now, like title and due date. Let's do it. Okay, task 1, and for example, let's give it a title. Okay, title, let's call it complete Python assignment. So the title of task 1 is the attribute of this object. And then let's give it, for example, due date. Okay, task 1, okay, and due date. Okay, for example, 25 August 31st. Okay, now let's do it for task 2. Task 2 dot title, we can call it prepare for Python exam. Okay, and let's give it a due date as well. Task 2 dot due date. Okay, and the due date is gonna be 2025 September 15th. Okay, and we are done. Okay, now let's print task 1 and task 2 and see. Okay, task 1 dot title. Okay, and task 2 dot title. So as you can see, the titles are successfully printed. This is tasks 1 title and this is tasks 2 title. But see how I'm having to do it one line at a time for each task. That's a bit clunky. We can make this automatic when the task is created, so we don't have to manually set this every time. To do so, let's remove all the manual stuff we typed here and add a special method called init. Underscore underscore init underscore underscore. This special method runs automatically every time we create a new task. Then, inside the parentheses, we list the information we need to build the task. The first one is self, title, and due date. Okay. Here, self refers to the object we are creating, title is the name of the task, and due date is when it's due. Then self dot title equals title, self dot due date equals due date. Okay, so the names here don't have to be the same. You can change this to something else. For example, title to title 1. So, and there is no harm in doing that. But using the same name is a common and helpful convention. So, self.title equals title. Here we are saying take the title that was passed in and store it inside the object as self.title. This way, the task remembers its own title. The same here. Self.due underscore date equals due underscore date. Here we take the due date that was passed in and store it inside the object as self.due underscore date. Now the task knows when it's due. Now let's create two instances of the task class and pass in values for their attribute as argument. task 1 and task 2. Okay, task 1, okay, here task the class, okay, and then okay, let's do the same for task 2 equals the class task, okay, parentheses. Now let's print and see. There's something wrong here. Okay, I forgot the colon. As you see here, we got the title for task 1 and the title for task 2. Now look at how much cleaner that is. We just pass the title and due date right when we create the task, and Python set everything up for us. Okay, now inside our init method, we've already set the title and the due date for each task. But a task also needs to know whether it's finished or not. Right now, when a task is first created, it's automatically not completed. So we add another attribute here. Okay, so we write self dot completed, okay, equals false. Remember, this is the variable that refers to this specific object we are creating. If we have 10 different tasks, self will be different for each one. Then dot completed. This is the name of a new attribute we are creating for the object. You can think of it like a little note attached to the task, saying this is whether I'm done or not. The equals sign means we are setting its value, and false here is the Boolean value, meaning not done. So the logic here is whenever a new task is created, we start by assuming it's not done yet. So we set completed to false, and later in our program we could change this to true when the task is finished. Alright, now let's create our first method that actually does something for us, something the task object can do. Okay, so here we start with def and let's call it task due and date. Here we define a new method called task underscore due underscore date. The def keyword means we are defining a function. Task underscore due underscore date is the name we have chosen. And yeah, in Python, we use lowercase letters and underscores for method names. And in the parentheses, we put self again, because every method in a class needs to know which object it's working on. And then inside the method, we type the following. Let's unpack that slowly. The return keyword means send this value back to whoever called the method. In other words, when we ask a task for its due date, this is what we will get back. The curly braces are placeholders for values we want to insert. Dot format is a method for strings in Python that replaces those curly braces with the actual values. We'll give it self.title and self.due underscore date. That means we take the task's title and the task's due date and insert them into the curly braces in order. For example, if self.title is complete Python assignment and self.due underscore date is 2025 August, this method will return the string complete Python assignment plus 2025 August. Okay, let's do it and see. Okay, so let's print now this, okay, using this method. Okay, task underscore due underscore date, and let's see what we will get. This is the address in memory. We got it because we haven't added the parentheses, because this is a function, so the parentheses are mandatory here. Okay, now let's see. And as you can see here, we got complete Python assignment plus the date.